Hi everyone, good afternoon. How are you all doing? Lovely to see you. Hope you're all having a great week. I missed you last week, I was away. So lovely to be back and lovely to see you all here. So come here, for anyone who's joining for the first time, thanks for coming. I hope you enjoy it. My name is Jane, so hopefully by now you're a bit familiar with me in some way, shape or form. And I see some familiar names jumping into the chat, so welcome back everybody else. So come here, we have a great session ahead and we'll get started in a few moments. But I just want to give you, I suppose, a little sense of what to expect. And also, these kind of group get-togethers during the week are fabulous ways to sort of keep you updated on goings on and stuff that's happening going forward. And we'll probably have Megan in the background here as well. So hello, Megan. Megan is going to be helping us out and she'll be sharing some information through the offers and so on. So come here. So before we get started, we have an hour. So let's really try and make the most of this. There's loads of information in this session, and to give it some context as to, why we think it's important and what we try and gain from this and what we kind of share from it. You're probably really familiar by now that we really encourage people to use the Careers Hub and use this accelerator program really well. There's a lot to learn about the tech industry, and it's really exciting. And trying to do all of this overnight might be a bit overwhelming. So we've deliberately positioned this kind of introduction to software companies to help you all kind of plan what career paths might be available to you. And when I say might be available to you, which ones you might choose is really what I should have said. There's lots of different career development paths within tech. There's loads of different ways that software developers use those skills in industry. And sometimes when you're maybe at early stages in this journey, they're all not that obvious and job specs can look a bit confusing. So this is to try and help you understand just what's available, and then over time you can start sort of working your way towards whichever ones seem more attractive to you as individuals. And so that's it. And then obviously it also really, really, really helps when you're reading a job spec, or if you're going to a job interview, to sort of understand some of the terminology and just where the person at the other side of the table is coming from, so that your worlds might mesh a little easier. So that's what we're going to be going through. We really encourage questions. So please, guys, anything you have at all is going to be helpful to us, to you, and to somebody else here. So jump into the chat with it at any point. We do also have a lovely feature. So you can probably all see that nice speak button. So when I'm going through the presentation, it usually lasts somewhere around 35-40 minutes, and then we leave loads of time for Q&A. So anyone who wants to jump into the room to ask their question in real life and have a chat with us, just use that speak function. And it's a lovely way for us to kind of see each other properly. So that's it. I'm going to start my slides in a second. And just before we get going, just to remind you all, this is obviously being recorded. So don't worry if you're on your lunch break and you need to jump out early. This updated version of it is going to be in the Careers Hub in the next kind of day or two. So you'll be 100% able to catch up on anything that you may have missed. And that's it. Okay, so let's go with the slides. As always, I'm just going to rearrange these settings so I'm a little bigger. I don't disappear entirely. Okay, let's go. So inside a modern SaaS business. So this is where we lift the lid and you can understand how the different teams relate to each other and sort of what goes on in here and where you may be particularly interested in kind of joining in. So this is what you can expect. These are the kind of main slides that we're going to go through. So the first one says introduce our guest. So I don't think I can be considered a guest anymore, but we do very often have people joining us. The last time we ran this, we had the lovely Yasmin Larkin, who some of you may remember. She used to be part of the careers team here, a very experienced recruiter, and is working in kind of blockchain technology recruitment now. So we've left her details here because she loves staying in touch with all you guys. So you will get to see who was here last month. I'm going to just give you a quick overview as to what SaaS is, so you can understand how to recognize a SaaS company when you see one. And we're going to go through the business model. It's kind of a more commercial slide than a tech slide, but it just really helps to sort of see how the model works internally so that can be familiar to you. And then we're going to go straight into the kind of more technical side of it. So example job titles that data shows us exists in these companies so that you can kind of recognize them. And then tech team structures, product models, business units that you could be working in, and then just a little insight to what success looks like in SaaS. And people who have worked in the SaaS industry for a long time, what sort of behaviors really help. So this is kind of moving on from the technical competencies and just understanding what kind of environment that you're going to be expected to be immersed in. So there's Yasmin. So just it was really useful this because again, just for kind of network building, you'll find Yas very easily on LinkedIn. That's her email address. The previous recording is in the careers hub, so maybe some of you already seen it, but just very useful for you to have to get her into your network because she's hiring like crazy and is a really good contact to have. Okay. So SaaS businesses, so what are they? So look, SaaS is obviously an umbrella term that refers to businesses that follow a similar model but will offer really different technical services. So it stands for software as a service, and I suppose in its most literal basic sense, I suppose around 15 years ago this became a very new business model where companies would completely purchase a core part of their service from an external business, and it's a kind of a recurring, you have a contract but there's a recurring fee, and it's, businesses become heavily intertwined with one another. It's a very modern way of doing business, and it's something that is obviously massively successful. So if we look, this is like a minuscule snapshot of just some of the bigger names in SaaS. There are millions others, and when I say millions, I'm not exaggerating. So some of you may be very familiar with this already, but even just at a quick glance, cursory sort of high level look at this, as you can see, some of those logos you're going to recognize. And I suppose what's really interesting is that they obviously all do really, really, really different things. So like if we just look at a few of them, so I'm going to pick out a few here that I know some of your alumni, some of our alumni, some of our peers have, post-graduation gone on to work in them. Like if we look at, obviously we're all familiar with Microsoft, we know what they do. If we look in at Salesforce, there's lots of CI alumni in there. That's basically a management tool for, sales processes. Then up in the right hand, we've got AdRow, like it's advertising technology. We've got DataPipe. This is just, the variety is enormous. And if I kind of think for a moment on, some hiring partner webinars that we've done recently that were SaaS businesses, a really recent one that comes to mind is the Access Group. So, one of Europe's largest employers, they employ thousands of people all over Europe, but their brand mightn't be so obvious to us as consumers because they will have a lot of brands within that kind of umbrella company, and they are selling everything from HR management tools to hospitality software, all coming under that umbrella. So what is particularly interesting about SaaS, and one of the particularly interesting parts of it is that because they sell a variety of services, particularly for career changers, you can present yourself with really good industry knowledge from one side of it, maybe as a user, maybe you used to work in hospitality using that example and you use some of these software products. So that knowledge is intrinsically important when it comes to making sure that SaaS businesses retain their clients. And so that subject matter knowledge is, really, really valuable. So just bear that in mind. Like you can explore this yourself. This was just a really high level. There's lovely Slack there that we're all used to. So there you go, like a digital collaboration platform sitting in the same place as, data management sitting in the same place as hospitality software. So the variety is massive. But I suppose what defines a software or a SaaS business is the kind of business model or the product model. So this is something that just will become really clear. Companies obviously they don't. It's really easy to recognize a SaaS business, and usually it's written on their website anyway, so you won't have to think too hard about it if you're curious. But I'm going to go through this kind of very high level, and the reason that I think that this is really handy for you to be familiar with is really to do with the terminology. Like if you guys, but sorry, I don't want to make assumptions, but certainly if I wasn't familiar with a job spec and I saw some of these things relating to product, I would probably kind of be a bit intimidated by it because it can all look a bit, a bit alien, a bit foreign, because some of the terminology in Slack is just very unique to, or sorry, some of the terminology in SaaS is very unique to SaaS. But just at a high level, it's good to understand how how the commercial model works in order for you to understand how the rest of the business has to sort of perform. And it will become very clear as you move in now in the next couple of slides into the technical side of it. But what defines it is its revenue stream. And as I mentioned earlier, it's based, if you look at the top square there, it's based on MRR, which is monthly recurring revenue, which basically means we all use this. You probably have it on apps on your phone as well. It might be free to sign up, free to get started. HubSpot is a good example of that. Small businesses can use HubSpot as their kind of business management tool, and it's free to begin. But it's, you know, the add-ons and the business model really comes from retaining that client, ensuring kind of an intrinsic reliance on one another. And then there's add-on features, which is sort of where the revenue starts building up. And that's how the whole business kind of works. So when we go around the circle, what the kind of language that you'll hear about that is really important in a SaaS business is around churn. So, you know, the cost of acquisition of getting a customer versus, you know, how you might lose them. So it's very important that they keep those churn levels kind of low and keep the retention levels high. So then the rest are kind of sales. So unless you're thinking of going into technical sales, which we will touch on as one of the later slides, you know, the detail of this won't be important to you from an engineering perspective, but the awareness of it will be. And there's, as we'll show later, there's a huge overlap in terms of communication and cross collaboration work and updating from team to team within a SaaS business. So it's very likely that if you go into a technical role here, you're going to become very familiar with this model and this rhythm and these references. And they obviously will have you know, a huge correlation to how the engineering team is kind of managing their scrums and managing their kind of product releases and so on. And it all really comes back to this because, you know, if the revenue streams are performing well, then that means that the product is doing what it needs to do and there's growth potential. And when we talk about growth, the thing with SaaS businesses is that they tend to scale and scale and scale really quickly. So, you know, there is a differentiation between growth and scaling, and being able to have multi-users on the same product obviously enables a company to scale really quickly, which means it does more business, but not necessarily a huge amount of more investment. That's what it means on a really basic level. But this is where we see these incredible stories of companies growing so quickly because they can do a lot more with their product. And as long as it can support its users. And so these are kind of what it all comes back to. So again, look, guys, this is just like really useful information, not necessarily something that you're going to like talk about in an interview, but it is going to make those conversations a lot easier if you sort of know what way the business is, what way they work. So here's some example job titles. Sorry, I'm just going to move my face so that you can see all of them. There, that's better. Sorry, I've covered up web developer, but I'm sure you're all familiar with that one. So again, just at a high level, the point of showing this to you is just to kind of give you a sense that when you look at job specs or when you jump onto a careers page and you're working through it, there can be loads of different ways with which the sorts of roles that you want to apply for are described. And a company is at liberty to do this in whatever way they want. But what is interesting is just to see the variety of, you know, what you could be looking at. And this survey just kind of picked up a certain amount of them, particularly within SaaS businesses, and just to give you a sense of the variety of it. So it's something, I'm sure there's even more, but this was just one example. So just don't be overly hung up on job titles. You know, how you define yourself will send a message out there really clearly, but when it comes to seeing jobs, just take the time to read through the detail in the job description, which is something that will give you much more information than the job title might. But there you go. So look, this is a very quick slide, but it was just to give you a sense that the variety can be quite broad. Okay, so here's the kind of good stuff. So we obviously all know, particularly as we look at those job titles, that, you know, what an engineer or what a developer might be called, but we might necessarily know how those teams are structured. So what we're going to work through here is a kind of an overview of a classic SaaS model. And this is the kind of core engineering team. So the core teams that will report into the CTO. And then following on from that, I'm just going to go through some of the teams that relate very closely into the engineering teams and will require technical and software development skill sets, but will also require kind of other skill sets so that you'll be able to look at the variety of things that are available and start making up your own mind around what you want to explore and what you're kind of curious to find out more about. And it'll also obviously really, really help you when you're coming to our hiring partner webinars, because some of these references might just make a lot more sense, and it might help you sort of think about the questions you want to know more about, because you've already got a pretty good understanding of, where this all fits and how it all works together. So I'm sure you've all heard of CTO, Chief Technology Officer. So this is the sort of the end of the line, or the top of the funnel, when it comes to who's making decisions about the technologies and the products and the technical performance. So you have a kind of things to think about here as well, because when you move into a really established business where all of these teams have been sort of fleshed out, you're kind of getting further and further away from the CTO. If some of you rather a small business or want to work in the SME sector, you're going to have a lot of access to the senior team, which sometimes adds a little more responsibility, but it also adds a lot more exposure. So, these are nice things to think about as well. What we've shown you here is kind of a typical fully fleshed out engineering division. And what happens with engineering is that engineering and product will typically sort of split as the company gets bigger. So it's highly unlikely, if you're walking in the doors of a startup, that it's going to be this organized. What you'll find is that this happens over time, but it can happen extraordinarily quickly in a SaaS business, and this is where opportunities present themselves for people very quickly. And so it's nice to kind of have an idea of where these teams can go to, and what kind of I suppose what sort of divisions tend to branch off, so that you can maybe just have a little think about which really interest you more than others. So if we go down through them, so you have your CTO making a lot of the decisions, and then you'll have your vice presidents, so your VPs. At full capacity, it's product and engineering are going to be divided, because they actually do very different things. Product will be very much around the research, the design, and engineering is the build. So you'll have director levels below that. You'll have managers. Managers will typically not just manage maybe a function, but will also manage people. So, there's obviously kind of career pathways there, depending on, your, I suppose, your own skill set and your own ambitions as to whether or not you want that responsibility. Then within teams, you'll have leads. And again, they can be driven by sort of expertise or by people management, or both. And then you have your individual contributors, so the black boxes down, so the senior software engineers, senior product developers, brilliant roles. And individually you'll be working within a team and working in probably a Scrum environment, working on projects, and then obviously reporting into all of those teams are shaped by people at different levels of expertise. So you can see that's a very kind of clear block of how it typically grows. What we've put around that is just, some of the sort of titles that you may come across. And again, look, they're going to vary, but just to show you, don't be intimidated by the variety of it. And, explore the kind of ones that you think sound really interesting to you. So, you'll have your engineers, you'll have your reliability engineers, infrastructure security, reliability and data infrastructure. If some of you, again, just to bring it back to some of our hiring partners, like when we were talking a lot about production engineering with Meta, aka Facebook, this is the kind of stuff that they'd be working on. So once a product is launched, the infrastructure and the management of that will be coming down to kind of a product engineering team, who would be making sure that these products are able to withstand any scaling that will happen, any dramatic increase in users, how are the features performing. There are a lot of different ways with which your expertise can grow. So just to keep an eye on all of those and keep an open mind towards them. And then over on the right hand side, obviously there's various different job titles here as well. You'll have, obviously your UX, kind of front end design, your digital transformation. So as companies are moving and transforming their digital offering and developing that, it's important that the fluidity is maintained and that the product in its digital version is doing what is required of it. So this is a really nice kind of area of expertise as well. Product integrations. So as new products are being developed, just making sure that they obviously integrate well into the existing product range, that they're actually needed, so when we look at a product team, they will rely very heavily on some of the teams that we're going to explain in the next few slides, insofar as getting customer feedback, looking at the churn rates that we mentioned, looking at retention rates, and understanding how those products are performing, being responded to, and getting feedback on. So I suppose what I hope is becoming really clear to you is that in a SaaS model, it's not a straightforward sale. Your product doesn't leave, it stays, you stay on top of it, but all of your clients are going to have multiple different ways that their own businesses are developing, and will have constant sort of requests and involvement, and development requests and feature requests, and unique sort of situations when they want to achieve things using your technology. So the communication between the engineering team and the entire rest of the business is crucial, and it's crucial to success. So, some of these maybe just kind of, as you're kind of absorbing some of this information, and particularly if it's new, just think about how that might tie into the working environment and, the internal communication and crossover on projects between different teams. So to leave this here, we're going to move on now to just everything that kind of comes around the core engineering teams. But just remember that that this is kind of typically what it looks like. But when we look outside the kind of core engineering focus, there's a huge amount of technical activity happening also. So here's another business model. This is sort of the product business models. This is what those engineering and product teams will be looking at. And again, these are the kind of conversations, languages, KPIs, so key performance indexes. This is what teams will be talking about a lot. If you're in a Scrum, these are the kind of conversations that you'd be looking at when you're approaching kind of product updates, product ranges, product development. So if we go around just very quickly, obviously in a SaaS business, the usage, the development, and the quality is always being looked at. And it's kind of central to how successful the business is going to be. So the sort of things that you're going to be familiar with are from the top. So the number of users. So obviously, how many people are using this, the users per feature. So a product obviously has features within it, so you're able to monitor how they're being used and received. When you're working within a Scrum, making sure the delivery is on time. So if you think of the communication field, so you have your sales team selling products, bringing that feedback back, contracts are being signed on the basis of the product being available. So when it comes back to an engineering team, that delivery on time becomes very, very important. And the team velocity. So velocity is just, what you're producing over time. So making sure that that's products and projects are moving at the right rhythm, so the deadlines are going to be met. Obviously, before a project is launched, it needs to be tested, and resources need to be looked at, and then the time to launch has to be managed. So if you imagine, this is just kind of normal stuff, but it's just that some of the language you may not have experienced in your previous roles. So I just wanted to make sure that this, again, didn't seem alien the first time you saw it in a job spec or the first time that you were talking about it in an interview. And there can be really nice ways with which you can sort of, incorporate some of this language into how you're explaining some of your own, maybe your previous projects, which can just make it sound really familiar and comfortable when you're in an interview. So it's, it's kind of a clever way of being able to ask a question or explain a situation in language that's familiar to them, which just really helps them understand. So I think that's probably something that's quite straightforward, but this is something which sometimes isn't, because people don't often understand exactly what is built around an engineering team. And that's what we're going to go through. So we have 2 slides here, all of which kind of show classic related technical jobs or teams which aren't forming part of the core engineering or product team. But I know that a lot of you, certainly as we've gone through a lot of the the career paths that people have followed, that these have been really, really high interest and they provide fabulous careers. So firstly, kind of tech support. So I guess everybody is going to be familiar with what that is, or the core components of what happens in a tech support team. So very obviously, once a product is launched, particularly in a SaaS company, you're going to maintain a really close relationship with the people who are using it, and they will rely on you very heavily. And that relationship will become more heavily used over time, particularly as they maybe are using more features or adding more users. So the tech support team are there as a sort of extension of the engineering team to make sure that they can address clients who are using this or trial users. So a typical kind of rhythm will involve client consultations, fixing issues, liaising with product teams or developers, and then obviously your KPIs, which are key performance indexes, will include numbers around the kind of cases owned. So they're, the queries are just situations that you're kind of working through, the resolution of them, so as they're resolved, and the time to close. So again, just that language to be really familiar with it. All of this, the other thing to kind of mention is that this is typically all business to business. So a technical support team is a very professional part of an organization. You're dealing with other kind of technical professionals. A high level, particularly when you look at a product. So if you see these sort of roles being advertised or you're curious about them, the sort of skill sets, and I think we touch on this a little bit later as well, but the kind of skill sets that are really important, are to do with communication as well, obviously, as your technical understanding. So being able to, interpret a technical situation, a technical request, a technical query. Some of it you may be able to resolve yourself, and some of it you will be bringing back to an engineering team. But what's really important is that this tech support team are typically relied on really heavily by the business, and there's a lot of data that's being fed back in from clients. You can have requests for new features and have a really good understanding of what your client's business ambitions might be, and working as a as a liaison between them and the engineering team to see, can these technical requests be developed or be supported. So really, really interesting, the consultative sort of roles. Again, like recent ones, just to relate it back, if you're going through Job Alerts channel, Agin, obviously we have a huge team in Agin who are moving into very senior kind of tech support engineering roles. Again, sorry, the Access Group, I'm just trying to think of stuff that was really recently, that they were here really, really recently. So have a look at the Job Alerts, and some of these may become clearer. So moving on to demo engineering. So demo is obviously to show something, and this is a highly technical kind of function. Typically, it is it sits between tech and commercial or sales. So you will have a sales team who are obviously selling the product and working to sales targets, and they will have a certain amount of technical ability. But when it comes to kind of complex demos, they will usually bring in a demo engineer. So again, your role will be client facing. You can be working on really interesting kind of technical functionalities that will help. SE, stands for Sales Executive Demo a Vision. So you could have a salesperson who's working with a major client. They've got a good idea so far. They've done a scoping. They know that the support structures are in place, that the integration is correct. They can host this product, but they've done a fairly good qualification on what it is that they're looking for, what the opportunity is, and whether this product can deliver. So there's a certain amount of kind of design involved in this, and what opportunities you will be working on. So those KPIs, that's what that involves. So it's working through the pipeline value. I mean, these could be millions of euros or dollars wherever you're based. They can really vary depending on just how senior you're working. So your kind of KPIs will be on around the value of the pipeline that you're involved with and the opportunities that you're working on. And you'll end up having a really, really good relationship between your engineering team and the sales team and your clients. People in demo engineering and solution engineering can be like gold dust to find. So if you're listening to this now and maybe have a background in sales, or just a really genuine, significant level of comfort and confidence in having kind of client-facing conversations, someone like you will be of high interest to teams like this, because it can be really, really, really difficult to find people who understand technology but are able to articulate that to somebody who maybe isn't a techie. So very often your purchaser isn't going to be as technically advanced as your engineering team would be. So there's a certain amount of sort of translation involved, and being able to interpret somebody's vision or requests into a technical solution is something that is just, hugely influential when it comes to a sale. So companies hold on to these people for dear life when you have a good solution or demo engineer. So here we go. So solution engineering, like really this is adding value. So it's a very technical role, but it's delivered in a presentation. So you'll be working really closely alongside sales. You don't typically work to a sales target. The salespeople are responsible for kind of bringing those leads, but you will be measured on your kind of contribution. And being able to articulate, a complete solution to someone, understand that business value. And it's important that we have the word storytellers there. So again, if there are some creative types here who, really enjoy that client facing piece and are good at kind of storyboarding stuff, this is somewhere where you might just want to do a bit of research to see would you like it. So the solutions engineering team usually have a variety of people from different elements of the business. So there'd be experts in terms of being technical architects or product specialists, so that all of that knowledge can be somehow captured in one creative solution and then sort of presented to a potential client. And again, your key performance indexes, your key performance indexes will relate to the kind of deals you're involved in, the close rates, the value associated with them. And there's a massive focus here in solution engineering on innovation, creativity, storytelling, but obviously goes without saying, underpinned with that technical knowledge and those technical insights. And then I think this is the last one that we've detailed here is customer success. So you probably see a lot around customer success. So this is that really important sort of immediate post-sale interaction. So this is, if you likened this to your new job, this is kind of your onboarding. And customer success, again, there's a differentiation between customer success and sort of support. So and sometimes they overlap a bit depending on what size business you're looking at, but the customer success will manage the onboarding, will manage that account. Obviously there's also a level of non-technical management of that, so it's kind of quite relationship focused, but you'll be really involved in the introduction, the rolling out of new products, rolling out of new functionalities, and it's you're sort of the go-to person for many of your clients. Your customer success team make sure that you understand how to use that product, and that's a really important sentence, because very often a product can be sold, can actually be capable of doing what's needed, but if the new users haven't been trained on it properly, haven't been introduced to the product properly, they just mightn't adapt to it very well. And if they don't adapt to it well, they're probably not going to use it much, and then they're going to end up in that churn bowl because they'll decide it's not of value. So the customer success team are integral to the ongoing success of a new client. So again, there's lots of ways in which that happens, but if you look at your typical kind of KPIs, it's kind of about churn rates, retention rates, and there'll be times of the year when your customers are all being renewed, and you'll be really focused on making sure that they want to. So that kind of brings us to the keys to success in SaaS. And look, a success in a working environment is, really just about finding the right place for you and, doing your best on it and getting kind of clarity on what's expected of you. So this is not designed or incorporated here to try and make you feel in any way like pressurized about this, but I think it's really helpful to understand what kind of environment it's like working in SaaS, and how people sort of behave in these businesses. So everything is quite metric driven. So and that's nothing to be frightened of. It's something that's really reassuring. There's a lot of clarity in SaaS. They usually have a lot of obviously kind of forensic data on what's going on between their customers and the products, so that they can use that all the time. And similarly, you'll have a really good constant overview on how you're doing on kind of your metrics and your the day-to-day deliverables connected to your job. So it can be like very easy to show that you're doing really well, and it can be if it's something that you keep an eye on, it's also really, really good to be able to see something that you're finding hard to sort of get some support on it. So communication is constant in in a SaaS business. That you're typically going to be managed really well, but there's a lot of communication between different departments, and as a result of that, it's the kind of environment where you really genuinely have a lot of sort of control and input as to what career paths you want to go down. And being sort of your own advocate of that is something that you can take ownership of in a SaaS business. There's an environment of change, there's an environment of growth, and honestly, that's sort of across the board in these companies. So, they they tend to scale really quickly and grow really quickly. And I suppose the business leaders within them and the leadership team are always aware constantly that their product is scalable, so that there are multiple opportunities to grow significantly. Obviously, all of those things add to new teams. So if you're kind of busy, performing well, aware of what's going on in different teams, and are clear on what's working well for you, there's lots of pathways that you can develop yourself, and it's encouraged. It's really normal for people to do that. For any of you, particularly if you're at kind of early stages in this and aren't quite sure technically where you want to bring this yet, this is relevant at any point, but please be aware that there's a multitude of skills that are highly valuable in SaaS and that are really common to people who work there, regardless of which technical direction you go. And for clear reasons, communication skills are massive. So just getting used to being vocal, getting used to getting feedback, getting used to asking questions, and then also just engaging with other teams and kind of growing that if you're a bit nervous about it now. Critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration. Anyone who has some customer or client facing skill sets, doesn't matter what industry it comes from, if you're comfortable with having conversations on a face-to-face basis with people, this is something that there are multiple teams in here that combined with your technical skills will give you an absolutely super chance at getting into a really good environment. And then active listening skills. And just to relate these, if you're listening to this and you're wondering how you would articulate that, please come to well, ask now if you like it, but also if you come to Hello World, which is recorded, it's in the Careers Hubs if you want to see it straight away, but we'll be doing it again in a couple of weeks. We can give you really good examples from even just your time and Code Institute as to how you might articulate your capability in some of these softer skills. But this is, if you imagine it just at a really high level, it's fast, there's a lot of communication, there's a lot of engagement with different teams, it tends to grow very quickly. So, managers in SaaS companies love to hire people who enjoy that speed, are quick with feedback, are forthcoming with kind of questions, and maybe are curious about progression as well, because even if you stay in your own division, there are multiple layers with which they're going to have to populate as they grow. But you've got a lot of access to other teams. So there's lots of things that you can do. And then also, just to pop back here for a second. So if any of you are thinking, look, you know what, I'm in a hurry. I want to get into a SaaS business right now. But maybe I'm at early stages in the course, so I mightn't get straight into an engineering team. These they're not support teams, but sorry, these teams that work alongside the engineering teams are also terrific places to look at. So customer success and tech support would probably be the two which, if you aren't in advanced stages, would still be open. Again, look, I'm being sort of a little bit generalized there, because depending on how technical the product is, obviously will have a huge impact on that. But it's something that I would just want to make you aware of if you're hitting the jobs market straight away. But look, talk to us about these at your one-to-ones. So I think that brings us to talk to us about this at your one-to-ones if you're curious about more of this, and please do some research. Something just to reiterate again, and we've had so many examples of it already this week, and it's only Tuesday, but graduates and current students getting roles in SaaS or tech businesses whose product is related to people's previous roles. So it's really worth putting, get a cup of coffee, go online. If, whatever your previous industry was, there are tech businesses probably servicing it. And that knowledge will be really, really valuable to a SaaS business that's selling a product into it. So it can be a really smart way to make yourself a unicorn because you have the combination of the tech skills and the industry knowledge, and that's massively important. Again, I know I've used this example before, but we have people who've come from the beauty industry and hairdressing who are working with hiring partners of ours that sell into those industries. So you might be overlooking something, really easy and obvious that is really useful to you in your CV. So there we go. I am talked out. Now, I think there's a couple of offers. So we have lots of time left, guys. We still have 20 minutes here. So any questions any of you have, now is the time to shout. And like I said, you have two options. You've got the chat function and you've also got that speak button. So the speak button will kind of spin you into the room here with me. But I just want to go back over a couple of events that I know are happening this week. So tomorrow, we have an alumni seminar on, and I would really recommend, if you're free, to kind of come and join that. Megan will be meeting another 3 alumni, all of whom have been in, I suppose, a similar situation to all of you here, but hearing their kind of unique situation as to how they got from A to B. They're all working in industry now, but some of their tips and maybe some of the decisions that they made and some of their experiences will be really, really useful. So they're fabulous to hear. So you can sign up to that there in the offer piece. Sorry, 1 second. Oh yeah, there it is. There it is. Okay. And then there was a couple of other things that I did just want to keep you aware of that is happening over the next couple of weeks. And there may need to do with recruitment events. So we are just in final stages of pinning down a date. Meta are returning to us. And this is, if anybody here is a returner, or if any of you are friends with somebody on the course who is a returner, just ask them to keep an eye out in Slack, because it'll be either next week or the week after. But Meta are coming back because they're launching their returner programs. A returner is kind of defined within an industry as being somebody who hasn't been working or at all for the last 2 years or more. And these programs are designed to try and help and kind of integrate people back in. So these locations will be all over Europe, and Meta will be here to just kind of talk to us about them. So keep an eye on that. And then the other thing as well is that while we're talking about SaaS businesses, Adyen are coming back. So they have roles in the UK and in Amsterdam. They'll be with us the week after next. So just please keep an eye on the Slack channels and sign up for those. But look, that's it, I think, from me. Are there any questions from anybody in relation to any of these? Or does it all make sense? I know there's a lot of information, but I might just leave that holding slide there for a minute for you to sort of absorb the core engineering teams. Okay. Okay, well, look, it looks like there aren't any questions from any of you. So I won't delay. I know it's coming up to 1:45, so maybe you need to get ready for your afternoon's work. But there's a question there from Daniel. So hi, Daniel. Oh, it's disappeared, but I think, oh, there it is. Daniel, will tomorrow's webinar be available to students in the future? Yes. So all of our webinars are recorded, Daniel, and they are in the Careers Hub. So it usually takes about 24 hours to get them up into the Careers Hub, but it'll be there. And there's actually there's kind of a catalogue of alumni webinars since the beginning of the year, which are really useful. I'd really encourage you to take a look over them as well. If for some reason you're not in the Careers Hub, just email us in careers, and just email us in careers, and we'll be able to get you signed up. So Megan says we have someone asking to speak. So sorry. So if somebody does want to come into the room, you can press that speak button. And yeah, Vanessa, there's a lovely bit of people there from Vanessa that other roles are available for the skill set. This is the brilliant thing. So I think it's really important to get that insight and understand that and understand that there's these software development skills are used by tech companies in so many different ways, and there are so many different teams alongside the core engineering team that really crucially need people who can code, and I suppose where we sit, we get to meet all of you individually as you come through, and we get to know you pretty well. And we know that everybody has unique talents. All of you are learning how to code, but you all present to the industry with, a different set of sort of ingrained skills already and set of experiences. So this is designed to help you understand just how valuable that can appear to somebody who is interviewing you. So just to know that, and it's really worth spending a little bit of time just having a look. There are so many different paths, and whatever one you start on, you can change your mind and make decisions as you move along them. This is, tech is very adaptable like that, but it's really nice to know how valuable it can be from early stages. So Christopher has a question. Christopher, that's a great question. I'm really glad somebody asked us. So Christopher wants to know what to explain for the difference between company growth and scalability. So scalability is really, really, really key to particularly a SaaS business. And the difference is that multiple users can use the same product. So if you look at, I'll try and explain it really simply. If you have a software product company, they could just be selling a product all the time. When it comes to software as a system, it's the scale can grow on the same product. So if I'm selling, let's say I was selling HubSpot. Let's just keep going back to HubSpot. If I'm selling HubSpot to a company and they're using it as my sales and marketing CRM system, if my company has 10 people in it today, but 1,000 people in it in 2 years' time, that means that obviously those licenses are increasing, so the revenue into this business is increasing, and all they need to do is have the product to be able to support all of these additional users. So the investment is high at the beginning, but typically then, profitable, scalable revenue is something that helps these companies just become enormous very, very quickly. So it's a business model which is kind of obviously very established, but relatively new. And when you see companies at scaling mode, what they mean is that their customers are going to rapidly increase. And even though the company is growing, it's becoming more and more profitable. So sometimes in other situations, for all of your growth, your revenue might be climbing, but your profit mightn't necessarily be climbing because of the amount of infrastructure you have to put in place to support that growth. Whereas in a SaaS business, it can scale. So you can manage really well what it is that your product requires, but the sky is the limit when it comes to the amount of users that that can go onto it. And this is, if you imagine how fast that can be, and how a company needs to be very agile to respond to it, hence those behaviors, the change, the growth, the the responses, and that kind of environment within a SaaS business is something that you can expect no matter what the product is. So I hope that that's kind of clear of what I mean. It can, when you read these stories of companies that are scaling really rapidly, that's what they mean, that their customer base is just like wildfire, but the core business is able to support it. So I hope that helps, Christopher. And it's, there's something about SaaS, like they're really exciting places to work. There tends to be investment and change and growth constantly. A SaaS business isn't going to stay static because it's exactly designed to be able to scale. So hence everything just seems to be really speedy in them all the time. And then there was a message there as well from Sarah. So hi. So did I say that customer success is a good place to begin if we're new in SaaS? It's a good place to begin, and it's a brilliant place to continue. So I just want to be really clear on how I word this. But the customer success is it is a very technical role, but it's also a very much a relationship management role. So where I've seen some people moving through a code institute, and obviously on a really personal, practical basis, wanting to kind of get started very quickly, they found that that's a really good place for them to get going. And it very often they want to stay there, they love it, and it's a brilliant career, and there's loads of options available to you. But it would typically require, from the outset, it might not require as high a level of technical knowledge as you might ultimately have once you're finished the course. So yeah, it can be a really good place if you just wanted to get started in tech very quickly. To be able to approach that sort of a role is really good. And look, I have presented these in a way so that everyone can see the different teams, and I've been really upfront about, the technical requirements in some versus others. It is going to vary depending on the business that you're in, obviously, and the size of the business that you're in. So just, take a little look, and you don't have to investigate that very tightly. You'll kind of know from the amount of companies that, or sorry, the amount of employees and just the size of the business as to how much access that you're going to have. But yeah, 100%, I would highly recommend that people at early stages get a couple of the projects underway. But if this is something that you would like to get started right away, this can be a wonderful place to facilitate that. And I see that, I think Vanessa has come back to you. So, Vanessa is doing this. Here you go. Oh my God, Vanessa, if you want to click the speak button, I'd love to hear that story. But so it looks like Vanessa was working as a CSM, so a customer success manager, while doing this course, and is now moving into product. So perfect example of how you can navigate around. So this is probably all very familiar to you, Vanessa. But thanks for sharing that. It's really, really good to hear, and hopefully Sarah will be able to benefit from some of that information as well. Oh, brilliant. Vanessa's going to come into the room. Okay. So Vanessa's probably spinning through cyberspace right now and will pop up in a moment. So this is perfect for all this kind of stuff. Here comes Vanessa. That's great. And Sarah, you'll be able to hang around and hear Vanessa's kind of journey to that, because it's really, really, really valuable. Okay, she'll be here in a second. Oh, here we go. Hey, Vanessa.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi, Jane. Sorry, I'm on my phone, so that's why you can't see me. But yeah, that's a great example, because I really relate to today's webinar, because it probably sounds silly, but I don't think I ever wanted to be a software developer, but I wanted this skill set.
Yeah.
And I was working as a CSM for a non-technical company.
Yeah.
And when I started this course, it was 1 month in, I had like 4 offers for tech companies for a CSM. So I did the course I got a job in a tech startup as a CSM, so lots of exposure. And I'm just about to finish the course, and I'm moving into product. So I really love that. And I work really close with the engineers and the developers, but I don't want to be one of them. but I can talk the same language as them, which is fantastic.
Well, isn't that, it's just such a good, I'm so glad. Thank you so much for coming into the room. And look, it's just for everybody else who's listening, it's just really, really, really nice to hear that within that environment, you can actually kind of plan things pretty well once, you kind of put the head up and look ahead a small bit, which it sounds like you did. So you had a plan, and you knew that in order to be in that environment, you needed to understand what they were talking about. You needed to have that skill set. So it had to exist. It's part of your job,
Yeah, exactly.
So when are you moving into product?
I'm looking in about 6 weeks. But the startup I work for is fantastic, because I've kind of had product projects alongside my CSM role the whole time. And, they invited me to all their dev meetings, their design meetings and everything. So it is fantastic. It's probably a more luckier case. But CSM, like, even I have friends who are working in like the HubSpots, and they're getting technical exposure themselves just by being a CSM there.
So would you recommend it then? I know Sarah was kind of asking about that, or Sarah, but I'm sure there's plenty others kind of thinking, gosh, I'd love to make this move quickly, but do I have to wait until the end? So depending on your circumstances, maybe you don't. You can start this journey and work your way towards it as you're learning.
Yeah, I would say jump right in. I'd say Sarah could drop me a message on Slack. I'm not too far or sure how long she is into the course or her background. For me, I was a CSM anyway. I was 1 month into the course then when I secured the tech CSM. But yeah, it worked. So it was fantastic.
Cool. Wow. And look, Vanessa, thank you so much for coming in. I massively appreciate it, and really encouraging when we're having these events to be able to just kind of sort of meet you live.
Yes. Sorry. I would have the camera on if I was more prepared, but I think it's good to be able to share experiences, because you just don't know.
Exactly. And look, everyone's starting point is slightly different. So hence, we just never want to be really prescriptive of exactly what path we are directing people along. But these kind of sessions just really help people get ideas and get exposure to, what is available. So thank you so much. I'm sure you've made Sarah's day. You've certainly made mine.
Yeah.
Thanks a million.
No worries. Thanks,
Cheers.
Jane.
No worries. Thanks a million. See you later.
Bye-bye.
So everyone, listen, thanks, Vanessa. Thank you so much again. Brilliant for, to kind of hear firsthand what sort of options are available. And again, guys, how we structure this, this is if you're working through the Careers Hub, you probably already noticed that, the next section after understanding a software business is the one-to-one piece. So I would just really encourage you, if you're kind of working through and you've done the last few sessions with us around your CV and your LinkedIn and your cover letter, this is designed to come straight after them so that you can you can sort of oversee and understand just why there's certain advices that we've been giving you and how a technical audience is going to recognize that and understand it and why it's really valuable. And then the next step is, come and book your one-to-one, meet one of us, let's go through it. Everyone has unique situations and, questions that are only pertinent to them. And, we want to be able to give you kind of one-to-one feedback on how you can best represent this and maybe some advice as you move forward. And then as you move forward in the Careers Hub, the next stages are really industry focused. So this is really good prep to help you understand that better. But look, that's it. Look, we really have come up to time. I'm so appreciative of you all for coming here, and I promise you it's a good investment of time. It's going to be really helpful for when you move to the more advanced stages and get interviewing, which is going to be really exciting. So look, like I said, we'll meet again tomorrow if you're free to come to our alumni webinar. And then we have lots of other events coming up. So thank you so much. And then in the Careers Hub is where, if you're ready to book your one-to-one, just go ahead and do that. And we look forward to meeting you. But that's it from me. Guys, have a fabulous Tuesday afternoon and see you all later in the week. Bye.